Okay, so hello and welcome everybody to this second deep dive session, which forms part of BBN's Face of the Future After Party event. So I'm Annette Fernandez, Executive Director at BBN, and we are the world's leading independent partnership of international B2B marketing and communication agencies. And if you did attend our event earlier in the month, I hope you're enjoying this month's additional content. If you didn't and you missed the event, then there's plenty of time to watch the content on demand via the same platform as you've come into today. And that's all going to be available until the end of March. Also next week, we're going to be releasing a great, exciting goodie bag of an additional free content that will be essentially available forever. And there's some really cool offers in there and some great free ebooks, etc. So before I hand over to the team to present to you today, just a few housekeeping reminders. So while the presenter is chatting away, if you could just put your cameras off and your mics on mute, and that just makes sure that the presenter has a clear view. So that's all. We'll have some breaks in between and at the end for any questions that you might have. Feel free also to use the chat function at any time to ask some questions if you have a burning question, and I'll make sure that the guys are aware of that. So it's my great pleasure now to hand over to Henrik Lagercrantz for today's deep dive into how to design a customer data strategy framework. Over to you, Henrik.
Thank you, Annette. So greetings to all participants from my end as well. So as mentioned, Henrik Lagercrantz here from BBN Finland. And for the next 60 minutes, we shall focus on data strategies with my close friends and colleagues, Markku Alikoski and Robert Nygård. Quick introductions of who we are and what do we do and what is the perspective from which each of us is looking at this topic. So I am there in the orange color box, 5 years younger than in the webcam screen there. But looking at things from the perspective of strategies and the account management and roadmap development operations from marketing technology development, marketing infrastructure development, and data infrastructure to some extent as well, with approximately 11 years of experience with this field. And I shall hand over to Robert to introduce yourself. You are on mute, Robert, the classic mute button.
It was me this time. But yes, as Henrik said, my name is Robert Nygård, and I'm the head of data and insights at IDBBN. And that, well, actually it means that where Henrik is the person who is often involved in the strategic and planning projects and missions, I'm often there in the clay, working in the operative and implementation projects. So I can say that there's quite a wide variety of data and analytics projects that I've been part of. So hoping to shed you guys with some wisdom or something you might not have heard before.
Definitely. Then Markku, last but not least.
Okay, I work as a system architect, and I'm involved with almost all of our customers. And typically it's me who designs the integrations and connects different systems and sets up systems and plans data models and data flows with our data team, analysts and data engineers, of course.
All right. Moving along to our agenda for today, it's basically 3 components here with questions and answers at the end. So we shall start off with looking at capabilities in practice that are fueled by data. So what are we actually aiming for? Robert will lead that. And then we will look at things from a strategic standpoint, the frameworks, as you might say, from a strategic perspective, and laying on top of that will be some practical standpoints, practical challenges, solutions to those experience from the front lines laid out by Markku. But if you have any questions as we go along, please do type them in the chat and we will then pick them up at the very end. And Markku and Robert, I will be clicking away at the presentation. So if you feel that you want to go back or forth, just let me know. And I like when Markku, you put your hand up, if you want to reserve an answer to a very concrete question that might arise. So let's use those functionalities present here if and when needed. But Robert, over to you.
Yeah, so as Henrik mentioned, we'll now first take a look at, what does the end product look like? What are we actually aiming for? What does it look like when you're actively using your data in your company? So hitting you here with a quite info-heavy roadmap slide, but fear not, I shall explain it to you. The vertical axis that you see there on the left side kind of tells you how much strategic value you're getting from each of these roadmap stages that you have there in the middle. And the horizontal axis tells you, it's the level of analytical sophistication that you gain as you move forward in your analytical maturity roadmap. So let's begin at the bottom left node here, operational reporting. So oftentimes the first things that the companies have, like when they've got their systems in place, is this standard reporting procedure. And you might be doing some custom segmentation or RFM modeling, but nothing too fancy. Just keeping your finger on the pulse so that you know what's going on. So that's like the standard that most companies are adhering to when they're at the beginning of their journey. But while you move forward, or when you take a leap forward in this analytical sophistication, you might have a KPI workshop with your team and decide on which KPIs are the most important ones that you should be tuning and hacking away at. And that's then going to culminate in sort of interactive dashboards with your current tech stack. You can actually get quite far with just marketing automation and CRM integration. So many clients actually, they're at that stage and are quite happy with where they are. So then, because the next step often requires a sort of infrastructure development upgrade in the form of a centralized data solution or a CDP. So that's maybe one of the first leap that the marketing unit often takes, is the decision to create a centralized data solution. So what you get afterwards is that you're able to do customer 360 eventually when you bring all your data together into this one central data warehouse of your company. And then, of course, you're able to do all sorts of interesting analytical discoveries, such as, you could look how a customer is behaving before a sales decision is made, or maybe there's in your product or software usage data, there's some kind of patterns there that forecast, a churning customer or maybe even a converting customer if you have another product or service group. So, it's quite unique for each company what these analytical discoveries are, but the process is still the same, and you're able to do that once you've got your data together. And then next steps, segmentation, where you can use algorithms to kind of segment your customers into groups, and these groups can then be used in, for example, targeted campaigns, and you can upload them as as custom audiences to LinkedIn or Facebook, and then use those as a sort of a seed audience and create a lookalike audience of those. So basically what you're doing is segmenting your own data and choosing the group that's most likely, for example, to buy product B or service B, and then uploading that to LinkedIn or Facebook and letting that platform find similar still unknown leads to you, expanding that recipe that you've kind of given to the platform based on your own algorithms results. So that's one quite popular way of going about it. And yeah, next up we have predictive modeling, which is something that many clients like to kind of experiment first. They might not even have their centralized data warehouse done yet, but they're so interested in predictive marketing or AI implementations for marketing and sales that they just want to try a proof of concept. So what we do then is just get all the data, in Excels and hand it over to the data scientist, and voila, then he or she creates a churn or lead scoring model or some other model, machine learning model that can then forecast customer behavior. So that's what we're talking about in that node, is actually predicting customer behavior and then implementing these predictions into your marketing ecosystem. For example, you might be creating marketing programs that use, for example, lead score or the churn score to trigger certain events inside your program's logic. So it's kind of starting to resemble an artificial intelligence at this point. The last stage there, hyper personalization and rapid experimentation, that's actually where we've kind of we're in full automatic mode here, and we're all these models are implemented in your tech stack, and they are continuously they're training themselves and configuring themselves, and you're even able to do sort of semantic analysis of form submissions or feedback surveys to kind of see if you're getting negative or positive or indifferent feedback from your customers. So NLP is the way of converting text responses into like a good or bad categories. So yeah, there's quite a road ahead and like a plethora of possibilities to tackle here.
A few questions that came up. You used acronyms in NLP and CDP. So what are these mystical terms?
Yeah, CDP is a customer data platform, which is a new sort of platform similar to a marketing automation system, but that platform's main kind of function is to work as a sort of glue that gets all of your company data together and then also makes it at the same instant usable in your marketing operations. It's like a platform solution for like using your data in marketing.
It used to be called data warehouse previously.
Yeah, that's what it was before they created these nice platforms that did all the hard work in one package. That's true.
The features that you can make the data actually actionable inside, but yes, NLP.
Yes, and NLP is natural language processing, which is a sort of AI or machine learning solution that allows you to turn text into yes or no answers, or plus or minus answers. It allows you to analyze text and messages and so forth.
Exactly. So quite often when we're talking about roadmaps, the differentiation between B2B companies and B2C companies come up here. What would you say from your experience, Robert or Markku, that where are the front runner B2B companies at? What are they grappling with in this scale here?
I could maybe take that one, Markku, if that's okay. So, for our customers, like the trailblazers and like the customers who are actively climbing this roadmap, some of them are creating their centralized customer 360 data warehouses, and others are already experimenting with AI models and machine learning models. So it's really, I think these two are the central stages at which these are the milestones. You get your data together and then you start using machine learning. So yes, B2B companies are currently striving forward with this, and some are already creating machine learning models and have even tested them and implemented them. All right. So next up, last slide was this whole roadmap of analytical maturity. So now what we're doing is we're zooming into one of the first milestones when you're climbing up this ladder, and that's often to create these kind of centralized and streamlined dashboards, which have varying degrees of data shown in them. Oftentimes, marketing organizations, they bring together their marketing automation data because there's actual lead data there that you can kind of connect to your you can connect certain activities to certain leads, and then they belong to certain accounts and so forth. So there's like a very like a richness of data in that system by itself. And then what they often do is bring digital marketing platform data also into these dashboards. So for example, you can see we've got the paid media dashboard there behind, kind of brings all of the data from these different channels together and allows the marketing manager to, well, on the fly, take a look at how different, country units are working and which channels are functioning the best and so forth. So that's really the benefit of having these dashboards, is the ease of use, saves time and energy and also money actually, because if you're outsourcing marketing operations, then you might not have to pay anymore for the reporting and analytics part of that job, because you're already getting that data streamlined into your dashboards as is. So this is quite a popular first choice for most companies. Actually, I wanted to ask here a question to Markku, that I mentioned earlier that some clients are actually doing quite well with just the marketing automation system and CRM system integration, and they're capable of doing very nice analytics, and they have sophisticated dashboards already at that stage. So could you, Markku, maybe expand on that a little bit from practical experiences?
That is in practice a really low-hanging fruit, in my opinion, because most marketing automation systems integrate to CRM systems quite easily using native tools. And combining marketing and sales data is often the first step when you start creating dashboards. There is a number of reporting tools built into these systems, and then you can easily use business intelligence tools like Tableau or Power BI to connect directly to these systems. And bring the goal here is to put the people together so they can share the single source of truth of dashboards.
So, Markku, I happen to know that you are currently involved with a few projects in which the end fruit is basically these real-time dashboards that combine data from multiple different sources. If you look at it from a system architect standpoint, that your perspective, what are the practical or challenges or problems that customers in those projects are like grappling with, let's say, like 80% of the time? Where does that actually go?
Typically, when an average CRM user looks at her leads and opportunities and accounts, it requires a lot of detective work to figure out what's going on. And I recently chatted with a sales manager who had created a lead into after meeting with customer. And with the marketing manager, we pointed out that did you know that there are 5 active contacts from this very same company who have been downloading white papers recently? And that is actually information that if you are not using advanced dashboards, it takes lots of clicks to gather the data. And if you have to report that to your superiors periodically, you end up doing lots of manual work, copy-pasting data from system to system. And that is something that we aim to solve with this kind of easy to view, very interactive and visual storytelling based dashboard. So where we take out the work of it and try to, for instance, visualize marketing influence into sales.
Mm-hmm. I like the word detective. To some extent, everybody working in this field needs to be a detective of some sorts. But back to you, Robert.
I can sign those papers, Henkka. Especially working in these data projects, that feels sometimes like it's the quite a big amount of these projects goes to this detective work and figuring out what's what. But the end result is very satisfying in the end. So it's all worth it.
And you have to do it only once.
Exactly, and then it's solved. That's what makes it so great. Anyway, while we previously looked at the first milestone, as I mentioned, the centralized dashboards, now we're taking a look at the other let's say not so low hanging fruit. So that's like AI solutions for your data-driven marketing programs. And what we have here in this picture is a linear, very simplified customer journey visualization, where you have your, at the far left, you've got all your prospects and your unknown contacts and leads that you have not identified those yet. And then when you're going to the right, you get the identified lead, first impact in the marketing automation system. And then when we get to the churn scorer, then you're already, that lead has become a customer, and you're trying to kind of prevent them from churning, and you're trying to sell them more. So what we've done is put together 4 of these key AI solutions that seem to be the ones that companies navigate towards, first of all. So quickly explaining what these do. So the prospect scorer, with this, you're able to take a look at your current companies and create lookalike scores for, your unknown prospect. So you can kind of prioritize there that, okay, this mass and this industry I should focus on, but not this. So you're kind of, the model is telling you where to kind of put your large, where to look, basically. Then the next model is the lead scorer, which, as I said, it handles the identified leads and contacts. So here you're kind of trying to estimate, okay, how likely is this lead to convert? So you're basically calculating a purchase probability. And with that, when you tie it into marketing automation functions and logics, such as, nurture flows and all that stuff, you're able to create, exactly AI-powered marketing programs by using these intelligent metrics. And when moving forward, we've got the churn scorer, which is, as it is, it's calculating the likelihood that all your customers are going to leave at any given point in time. So it's basically a percentage. And one popular way of using this, which is actually their software that allows that you can buy that actually does this, is it calculates this churn score for all your customers, and then it gives an alert to the salesperson responsible for that customer when the churn score is trending upwards. So that kind of gives the salesperson a ping that, hey, you should be doing something now. And you can also, of course, use this score in marketing programs to prevent churn. And on the far right, we've got the upsell scorer, which is basically if you have different products or service groups, you can calculate a score for each of these, an affinity score of sorts, and see what other products or services your customers would be interested in based on their activities and their data. So yeah, these are the 4 most popular ones. And on the bottom there, we've got the predicted customer lifetime value and customer lifetime value metrics, which are kind of the value metrics that you can calculate for your leads and your customers to kind of help you in prioritizing which ones you should be spending time on. And these are also, you're able to implement these in your marketing programs to make them, very sophisticated. So yeah.
How would you say, actually, from your experience, Robert, that which of these applications of AI is most popular in the B2B company realm, and why is that?
I'd say lead scorer, definitely. I think one reason, of course, is that when you've got your lead score, then you're kind of able to focus and prioritize your leads, because there's the companies that have the problem of mass. You have too many leads, too many prospects going on, so you can't kind of you can focus on all of them. And even if sales is involved at this stage, then they might not have time to focus on everyone. So especially those companies that want to prioritize which leads to actually spend, salesperson and man hours on, those are navigating towards this one quite quickly. And good news is that if you have a marketing automation system, it's quite easy to implement this, because that system collects almost all of the data that you need. The only other data that you need is the purchase timestamp data, and that's something that can be quite easily gotten by sending an Excel or another file. So there's a very low threshold to do these sorts of models and AI solutions.
Markku, you wish to expand on that answer?
Yes, and I think for my marketing manager here, this is a real opportunity, because not only do we produce analytic knowledge, we can also build marketing automation programs based on that. So when your lead score changes to a certain direction, we can point you to a different automated program. And same goes for the sales automation, which is coming increasingly popular. All kinds of automated programs occurring in your CRM.
Exactly.
And that was mine.
Yes.
My
thank
part
you.
done.
Thank you, Robert. Don't go anywhere. I must ask you tough questions, and the audience too. Remember, hack away, write the impossible questions and test us if we can get an answer to you. But moving forward, so if Robert was describing like practicalities, what might the end results, the fruit of let's say the analytical components of data strategies look like, zooming out to the helicopter perspective and looking at things from the data strategy framework perspective. So here is a data strategy that we use to cut this big elephant called data strategy into small digestible pieces. Each strategy must, of course, have goals and aspirations. And at the top here, these colorful boxes, these are the components that you would want to use in describing the desired change, the desired outcomes in very practical terms. So you would use these boxes here at the top to build your practical use case, define those in a concrete way, and paint a picture of what does the end state look like, and then building momentum and motivation inside your organization to move towards the future state that you just described. These are then the components that you would expand upon to create your own change story and communicate the why inside your organization with as much practical terms as possible. Then at the bottom here, we have our classic components that are, of course, elemental to defining your actual data strategy and the roadmap to the victory there. But as the color already indicates, the monotone color there, these terms, they have a risk of sounding a little bit boring, and they've suffered a little bit from inflation. And at least if you ask your staff, data, processes, technology, are those inspiring terms? Maybe not. But the communication of your strategy and getting buy-in internally, that's a topic and a theme that is quite often overlooked when we go into the nitty-gritty details and start talking about AI and CDPs, NLPs. That is still, if you want to get things done, you need to pay attention to that. So if we think about which leader would you rather follow? A leader that is asking you to join on a journey towards excellence in the field of operations based on true customer insight and democratized analytics to gain insight accessibility to everybody? Or would you be interested in following a leader to embark on a journey to fine-tune our processes so that we leverage our investments into technology and ensure compliance with the data governance policies? Sure enough, the latter one there is also something worth pursuing, but again, use these concrete operations and boxes at the top to paint a very, very concrete picture, and then use the ones in the bottom to draw the roadmap. So if we look at these concrete components here in a little bit more detail, especially in the beginning of your data-driven journey, these use cases, as mentioned, should be very, very concrete and well-defined. You should aim for use cases that are tied to your everyday operations and highlight what the difference is after the use case is operational, contrasted to where you are now. This difference is then what you would use to build out the business case. So current state, future state, what is the change there? And the impact of that change should be defined in euros or dollars to gain buy-in and management approvals. So if we think about use cases for data development, data strategies, I've listed 3 key principles for use case creation here. So one would be to attach the use case to a bigger corporate strategy and business goal, if any way possible. This is again speaking to the management buy-in and funding component. Then select the use cases that you yourself are involved with when operationalizing these. So do something for yourself. So this ensures you get proper control on the execution and you ensure that it gets done properly. And this feeds into the third component there. So keeping the use case small and aiming for quick wins to show results and value fast. And there, of course, you want to be controlling. So number 2 there. So you personally involved in those operations. But let's quickly have a glance at the details inside these components. So operations based on customer insight. There is the insight-driven strategic planning, which is basically that you actually validate plans and strategies with data, for performance data, than trusting your gut instinct. Data literacy, that's a term that has been becoming very, very popular. So it is the understanding of value of data and then the practicalities, how you would actually use the data to drive insights and create insights within whatever your personal role in the organization might be. Then there's the insight accessibility, democratized analytics, which is basically meaning that instead of having silos or centers of excellence that you always need to rely on to get insights distilled out of data, that competence would sit across your organization. And a tool to reach this is quite much exactly the dashboards that Robert just displayed there. So those are one implementation of granting analytics and access to insights to multiple different individuals. Well, quantified sales or quantified impact into sales. Now that's something also that Robert was discussing there. So marketing attribution and how marketing actually contributes to sales on an opportunity or closed deal level. So that is a concrete example of that. Then the third one here, operative precision and performance. This is the reaching the correct audience at the right time and with the correct message component, all of which, if you want to automate that and become actually data driven, that requires a proper data infrastructure in the back end to actually be able to automate that, which is then again our fourth component here. So triggered processes, automation and optimization. So personalization, how do you know which message to give to which of your audiences? That is quite often data driven. And of course, optimal spend allocation, where to spend your media budgets, for example, to get the highest ROI, and end-to-end feedback loops, data and insights. So basically marketing and sales data integration, and so that sales knows what's happening in marketing and marketing vice versa knows about sales operations. So if those are the practical goals and use case building blocks that a CMO might use, we've also created an interactive strategy outlining tool that we will actually be giving away for free. Anybody who attends this session will have instructions at the very end, so stay tuned. This tool is in the format of a interactive Miro board a very favorite tool of mine in this day and age of remote working. And this tool is a board that guides you through the different dimensions of building a data strategy for your organization, and you can customize that as you please. And I'm now going to be jumping in to quickly go through the Miro board. But Robert, I give you the task of pulling me out of the matrix now that I leave this view. So I'll take, say, 5 minutes describing this, and then you just stop me if I get too carried away here. But here we are in the Miro board, labeled Data Strategy Blueprint for 2024. You could, of course, use whichever timeframes or end years here, whatever you please. But what this contains is 4 strategic dimensions: strategic analytics, data, organization, and technology. So basically, strategic analytics, to some extent, what Robert covered in the beginning, and data, organization, technology, a little bit self-explanatory there. But all of these 4 components split into 2. And all of these 8 categories you would evaluate in terms of your maturity level. And the colorful balls here are the tool with which you would first state your current status in marketing 2022 and the desired status for marketing, or you can call it whichever organization in the time frame that you please. So current state, future state. But also I added this red ball here in the sense that you would ideally want to start painting a picture, a story of progress here, because all data strategy and basically all strategy operations are something where you will need change management practices. And if you want people to move in the direction that you please, it's good to basically outline that actually this is a journey that we're already on. So if you, it makes sense for you to start drawing a little, let's say, looking back 2 years or 2 or 3 years back from where you're now, and put your position in red that, okay, here is where we were actually X years ago. So when we started, and then you can, so let's say you are in maturity level 0 here. Your current status would be in the experimenting phase, and you wish to be at the business-driven phase. So that basically already tells a story that, hey, actually, we are already making good progress here. So why stop here? So that's like a communication tool, and gives a good sensation of momentum that's already going on. A few minutes still, Robert, if you please. This, once you map your current state and the future state, then we have these items here that in which you would start taking down your next steps or biggest bottlenecks, or actually write down the thoughts for your specific use cases, and do like very concrete notes here per each of these categories. Because these are to some extent quite high level definitions of this maturity level, here's where you would make it very concrete per each of these 8 domains. And after that, you would start with prioritization. So looking at the benefit to your business and contrast it with the complexity of implementation. And you would have a 2x2 matrix of using that to prioritize like my next best actions and should do actions and so forth. So here is a blueprint tool that you can get by contacting me, but moving back to our presentation here, one moment. And I think we are still quite much in time. So if Robert was talking about the fruit of data strategy, implementation, execution from the analytical standpoint, what does that look like? I was going through like what are the components that you would be looking at, and what are the dimensions that need to be covered when building your roadmap from current situation to the future state. Let us use the remaining time to discuss experiences from the front lines. So practical challenges and solutions, and basically starting off with frequently asked questions in operations that we very, very often get asked by our customers. So let's start from the top here. So Markku, this first one's coming to you. Does all my data have a best before date? How would you approach that?
As a foodie, I think that data is like the food in my fridge. There are different categories like account data living in the freezer, but it needs to be consumed. It has to be taken care of. It has to be refreshed and processed properly to serve any purpose. For instance, if you're looking at your activity, recent activity data, what are the prospects up to? It's useless if you look at it 3 months later. You have to plan some action steps instantly, because if somebody visits your webpage and downloads a white paper and fills a form for 6 months ago, it's too late to do any action. And same applies to your CRM data. And I have seen organizations whose Salesforce CRM data is like a graveyard. There are lots of people who have retired and changed jobs, and the company data has not been updated as it should be. You should have some kind of master data system that you update the firmographics, because companies change, they develop, and by following the change, you can, let's say, identify growing companies or fading out companies in your customers, and plan your actions accordingly. So I think the freshness of data is a very important thing. And it comes also with a cost. Most marketing automation systems, you pay annual license fees based on how many contacts you have there. So you shouldn't have inactive or passive contacts who you do not intend to do anything with, because you end up paying many times more money.
So if I expand on your fridge metaphor there, if all data to some extent does have a best before date, what would the practical operation of cleaning your fridge look like? What are the components that you would do if you start suspecting that there's a suspicious smell when I look into my data fridge here?
One of the things we have recently done with multiple customers is that when you realize that, okay, there are contacts in your marketing contact database who are not practically doing anything, before removing them, we could set up a campaign kind of to activate them or ask them what they would like to have from us. And then if they are not responding to that, we could safely remove them from the database. And data enrichment is one way of taking care of the freshness of your data, especially in the early stages when we barely know your email address and name and company name. But what if we could enrich that potential lead with firmographic data from master data? We could see that, hey, there are actually so and so many employees in the company, and they are exchanging so and so much. So we could have better information for our machine learning tools, and keeping that fresh and doing it on a regular basis would give us better potential. So for some customers, getting there before your competition is very important, and getting these early signals with better data that is up to date would give you a leading edge.
Most definitely. So second question here, that if you were a new CMO in a new organization, and you wanted to make a dent and make an impact in the context of data and data strategies and data-driven operations, where to start in that position to make the biggest impact with biggest certainty?
I think with most companies with marketing automation technologies and CRMs, combining these two and then putting these people work together, sales and marketing, and sharing common tools. And I like your term democratized reports, so that we can share the same truth. And oftentimes it's very easy because these tools come ready with integration potentials and even quite sophisticated dashboard building tools.
So if I were, whenever I'm asked this same question, I always go to my go-to answers that what are the processes that your organization has, and then what are the goals that those processes are trying to serve. So basically mapping out your current operations in both marketing and sales, and looking what sort of data, what does the data trail look like, and does the actual data signature look like what your processes look like. So is there a direct match that does your data actually reflect the processes? So that sort of a mapping operation is quite often that where I direct the newly appointed CMOs to get a grip on that.
Making some kind of data and integration assessment is important. Each and every time I do that for a customer and report for our findings, we find a lot to improve. And actually, it can be improved quite easily.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think, Robert, you touched upon this topic to some extent, but anyways, a question we very often receive. So as a B2B company, we don't have millions of rows of data. Is that a blocker for me? Can I do AI? Can I use machine learning operations? What is it? You are muted. Second time.
All right, 2 strikes. Let's not see a third. Yeah, what I meant to say was, this is something that many customers are worried about when they approach us with this project idea. They want to create a machine learning model, but as we've done before, we've created machine learning models on very sparse data. We're talking 1,000 rows or 2,000 rows of for example, of conversion data, and then you still have activity data that's many times more than that. So I'd say, like, I would wager that most companies thinking about implementing machine learning or AI solutions into their marketing and sales, they are the size companies that they already have enough data. They have enough business, and as a result, the data to support those types of applications. But in the end, you can't know until you try. There's no universal rule of how much data is too little. Well, if you've got under 100 rows of like the target data, then that's a problem for sure. But I'd say that as a thumb rule, you should at least analyze that data and try something out before kind of forever thinking that your data is not good enough for machine learning. The fact is, it's quite easy to create like proof of concept and very quick machine learning models that you can kind of use to figure out if the model makes any sense based on the data that you gave it. So it's easy to try it out and get an answer on that topic. So yeah, my answer is that it might be a blocker if you have, well, less than 1,000 or hundreds of rows of data, but I think most companies aren't going to see this issue.
Mm-hmm. And actually, one dimension you could add to that is that your answer was maybe looking at things from the perspective of let's build our own custom models and then actually go deep into the analytics scene. But there are still ways of leveraging AI and machine learning in the format of, let's say, chatbots or service bots and other like already pre-formatted software as a service solutions
Yeah, definitely.
that you can actually like get started with like the next evolution of tools with that are actually data driven and learn from input and the data that you already have. So there's always that dimension as well. So
yeah.
All right, last one on the list here: onboard new tools or integrate existing tools. Where to get the best value? Where should I place my money? Any thoughts on that?
I have several customers now who we are really like putting their existing system to work on steroids. So because most systems are kind of sophisticated, and I see that the customers haven't grown out of these. But of course, with these same very customers, they are very interested of hearing from us. Are there any better tools besides these we are currently using, and where should we go next? And that is also a service we provide, that we make different evaluations and scenarios of what would be the benefits of having this new tool, because I feel that customers are in a sense left out in the cold by their software vendors, trying to sell them all kinds of tools that they don't even, because they don't understand the customer, they don't understand that the customer won't need that precise tool. Instead, another tool would be a good choice.
Mm-hmm. So whenever I'm faced with this question, I turn to the same playing field of what are your actual goals, what are you trying to achieve, and does the current tools actually support the processes that you have in place to actually receive or that you use to drive towards those goals. So looking at it, like auditing it from the practicality standpoint, because for sure there's always like new tools come at the switching cost in like the migration sense, plus also the resistance to change cost. So that must be taken into account in the big picture of things. Working our way towards questions from the audience. So that is coming up next. But before we get to that, 3 key takeaways for a successful data strategy. Number 1, focus on concrete use cases close to your current business goals and current business strategy. Data works best in line supporting whatever it is that your bigger organization, the bigger picture, whatever that is trying to achieve. So make sure that your goals are aligned with the business goals. Makes things a lot easier to scale and move forward after your first few successes. Number 2, remember the human aspect. So data and tools, those are things that quite often when we talk about data strategies, technology and data, of course, come up at the very, very forefront, but they won't get you there if you just focus on those 2 aspects. So there's the whole organization, the learning, the ways of working, all of that will change. So you need to focus on the human aspect for sure as well. Number 3, leverage learnings from the general guidelines or guidebooks or textbooks related to change management. So basically when we're doing these data strategies, quite often processes, ways of working, things change in quite dramatic ways. There might be complete like roles that are left out. Some functions we don't need to perform at all. So there is for sure a human element at play when we start changing big tectonic things in the background. So the communication part, getting people excited and looking at the change management perspective is very, very key, at least in my opinion. Annette, do we have any questions from the audience?
No, there's nothing currently in the chat. But if anybody does have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat or just unmute your mic and ask away.
I shall take that as a no questions at this. Oh, is there one? There's at least it says chat icon.
Yes, and sorry, I also have a question. Is it possible to connect marketing automation systems also with external data gathering systems? Like in Finland, we have Vainu for market information. Have you ever tried that?
Yes, we have.
Markku, you want to take a stab at that?
Yes, that's very common because Vainu can, with all kinds of news-related data, what's going on with the company, we can really enrich the data in marketing automation systems. And actually, we are currently working with one customer who have both marketing automation system and Vainu, and we are putting them together. And since all the systems have great APIs, meaning that there's a method of connecting these things together, and most systems have even built-in integration, so you don't need a programmer to put these two together. For instance, retrieving all your LinkedIn, Facebook, lead gen, or Lyti information, or go to webinar information, connecting that in an automated sense to a marketing automation. And typically, a marketing automation system is a kind of a poor man's data warehouse, because it's typically connected to a number of systems, easily 10 different social media or different channels, communication channel systems.
A very good question.
Thank you. We're considering to taking in Vainu in our education, so that's why I also asked. Very interesting.
I have now the last slide of presenting here. So it has a call to action. If you want your personal copy of that data maturity mapping Miro board I quickly ran through, please drop me a line at henrik@idbbn.fi. You can use my longer email there as well, but it's a little bit prone to typos. So henrik@idbbn works just fine. And without further ado, we thank you for your time, your contribution to questions, and happy to help on any data strategy related operations or challenges or changing thoughts on this whole scene in general. I think we shall end it here.
Okay, thanks Henrik, and thanks to the team.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Nice to see so many familiar faces. Bye-bye.
Likewise,
Thank you, guys.
likewise. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.